Time can be our biggest asset or our biggest liability. Classroom and session management is all about making time our biggest ally in the learning process. Numerous studies have shown a strong positive correlation between increasing instructional time and improving academic outcomes. Those studies are often at the foundation of arguments made to extend the learning day with after-school programs and extend the learning year with summer programs. If you've ever stepped foot into a poorly managed classroom or session, then you also know that all of those studies come with a huge caveat, which is if the time is not used effectively, more time just creates more problems. At the core of effective management are routines and expectations. Let's start by unpacking an expectation. In the context of a classroom, an expectation refers to a standard of behavior that guides how scholars should conduct themselves, interact with others, and approach their work. Think of them as the principles or rules that define the norms and values of the classroom environment. Clearly defined expectations help scholars understand what's required of them, reducing confusion and fostering a fair learning environment. More importantly, clear expectations help prevent behavioral issues by establishing boundaries and guidelines for acceptable conduct. There are three common types of expectations in a classroom: behavioral expectations, academic expectations, and social expectations. You might see a behavioral expectation like listen respectively when others are speaking, an academic expectation like complete all assignments on time and to the best of your ability, and a social expectation like be kind and supportive to your classmates. Expectations govern the classroom. One of the biggest mistakes I see educators make is that they start their school year or sessions without setting expectations for their scholars. They make an assumption that these expectations are common sense or that everyone knows how to behave and act. Let me let you in on a little secret. Kids are really, really, really smart. And you are absolutely right that they know how to behave. But not everyone shares the same social, behavioral, and academic expectations. That's why it's important to set them for your scholars collectively. It's about creating shared understanding and agreement. You might be thinking, how many expectations should I have? There's no perfect answer for this. It depends on the size and maturity of your group. What matters more is that the entire group agrees that these are the expectations and that the expectations are revisited periodically to remind the group of their agreement. They can be reminded of them verbally or in writing by having them posted around the classroom. Kids do what you do before they do what you say. So remember, if you set an expectation, you have to live by it and model it. For example, if you set the expectation that only one person speaks at a time, you have to enforce it when more than one person might be speaking. And it also means you cannot interrupt your scholars without acknowledging that you're not following the expectation. We have to lead by example. All right, on to routines. In the context of a classroom, a routine is a set of established patterns of behavior that scholars are expected to follow regularly. Routines help us create an organized and predictable environment, making it easier to focus on learning. They can cover a wide range of activities, from how scholars enter the classroom to how they transition between tasks and end the day. The key is to focus them on things that recur often or typically take a lot of time. When done well, routines reduce uncertainty for scholars, and less time is spent on managing behavior and more time can be dedicated to instruction and learning. They also help scholars become more self-reliant as they understand what to do without your constant direction. The three areas where there should be clear routines and expectations established are around arrival, dismissal, and transitions between activities. Arrival and dismissal happen every session, making them perfect candidates for things that recur often. Transitions also happen often, but it's the lost time that can take place between activities that makes them ripe candidates for routine. An example of an arrival routine might be scholars enter the class or session, greet the educators, and begin journal writing or answering a warm-up activity that's shared. This allows scholars to get started doing something as their peers are arriving. An example of a dismissal routine might be 2 minutes before the end of the session, scholars wrap up their work, clean up their area, pack their bags, and review the homework assignment. An example of a transition routine might involve a signal or a clapping pattern that you can establish with your scholars that lets them know we're done with one activity and transitioning quickly and quietly to another. As with anything else that you're teaching to your scholars, there needs to be time for explicit instruction. That involves giving direction and creating time for practice. There are schools that bring scholars in a week, sometimes 2 weeks before school starts just to establish expectations and routines. That upfront investment adds hours of additional learning time during the school year that would have otherwise been wasted or lost in transition. In the same way expectations and routines support effective classroom management, lesson plans are critical for session management. A lesson plan is a detailed outline or guide created by an educator that outlines the objectives, materials, activities, and assessments for a particular lesson or class period. It serves as a roadmap for educators to ensure that their teaching is organized, purposeful, and effective in helping scholars achieve specific learning goals. A good lesson plan allows you to start with the end in mind. Knowing how long your session is, you can divide the components of the time you have together into teaching, practice, and discussion time. The lesson plan will also push you to think through any materials you'll need. So it'll also show you where you might have opportunities to include activities and give you a moment to think about how to tailor the lesson to connect with scholars who might have learning differences. There's no one-size-fits-all lesson plan template. Lesson plans will vary in their length and the amount of detail depending on the age, subject, and amount of time you have. And of course, if your school has a specific template that they want you to use. For this example, let's assume we have a 30-minute session. At a high level, you might want to spend 5 minutes on a warm-up activity that you pre-planned, 5 minutes on sharing the objective, activating prior knowledge, and sharing the significance behind what will be learned. The next 5 minutes would be spent teaching the content, followed by 5 minutes for guided practice, and the final 5 minutes for independent practice. Spending a few minutes planning also gives you a sense of whether or not you can realistically accomplish what you're planning. Time is also saved preparing examples and practice problems for scholars to apply their learning before getting to the session or the class for the day. A well-planned session also helps time move by so much more quickly than one where everything is being completely winged. Lesson planning could easily be an hours-long training. Given where you are in your journey as an educator, I just wanted to make sure you had an overview. Don't be discouraged if you're struggling to create an effective plan or managing to the time you set on your plan. Both of those are skills that improve with practice.